Chapter 651. It would be best if they could get information from Harold about Miss Nat's whereabouts. Then, Ethan wouldn't need to go on a wild goose chase for her. Harold glared at them and said, "Who is this, Miss Nat?" "Eugenia is the only woman I know. Don't slander me. If Eugenia suspects I have another woman, she'll come crawling out of her grave to beat me up." "Grandpa, I'm not kidding. You were clutching Liv's arm and calling her Miss Nat." Harold grunted and said, "Why are you still so naive? You believe the ramblings of a delusional old man. What if I told you I've seen an alien?" Ethan didn't have a response to that. Harold's personality was livelier than he used to be. He would often act or talk childishly. Ethan couldn't handle that. After a while, Harold started to ignore Ethan and went to hold Olivia's hand. "You should have come here long ago. Aldenvine is such a horrible place, unlike here. We have beautiful mountains and rivers. There's also the beach, and our weather is way better. It's a good place to live. You might even get pregnant easier here." Olivia smiled and replied, "That's true. I'll be staying here for the foreseeable future to further my studies." Studying is good. Learning new knowledge is always useful, but don't stress yourself out. Look at how malnourished you look. Has that brat not been feeding you well? If Eugenia ever finds out, she will crawl out of her grave. Olivia could tell that Harold treated her like his own granddaughter. The love he had for her was overflowing in his voice. "If you have anything you need, just tell me. Stay away from your mother-in-law. She's off the deep end," Harold said as he pointed at his head. Then, Harold added, "But I'm also out of it sometimes. Ethan is the only normal one in this household now." Olivia didn't know what to say. Ethan wasn't that normal, either. "You've finally come to visit me after so long. Come, I'll give you a tour around my place." "All right, Grandpa." Olivia and Ethan each took one of Harold's hands and supported him as they walked. Harold said emotionally, "Since your grandmother passed, I felt like spending my days in a daze isn't that bad. At least I won't have to spend time wallowing in sadness as I think of her. Cherish your time with your loved ones so you have no regrets when they are gone." "Understood, Grandpa." Harold glared at Ethan and said, "Do you really understand?" It was like Harold's gaze pierced right through Ethan. It was as if he had sensed something wrong. Ethan felt his heart skip a beat. Harold changed the subject and said, "All right, I don't have much longer to live. I just hope you two can stay with me more. I'll be satisfied if you can bear me a grandchild." When babies were mentioned, Olivia quickly interjected, "You're still in good health, Grandpa. We're still focusing on our careers. So, we won't be planning for a baby anytime soon." Olivia didn't know why she would give birth to Ethan's child at 21. She must have loved Ethan deeply. In her opinion, she was still in her prime and didn't need to become a mother yet. At the very least, she didn't feel like she wanted to do it at the moment. Ethan's nails dug into his palm, but he kept a straight face and said, "That's true, Grandpa. Liv is still young. We're not in a rush." Chapter 652. Although Harold felt anxious that neither Ethan nor Olivia wanted kids at the moment, there was nothing he could do. He was a quick-witted man and would think of other ways to achieve his goal. He proceeded to change the topic. "All right, it's fine if you don't want a baby yet. Now that I think about it, my birthday is just around the corner, and I haven't celebrated it since your grandmother passed. Since both of you are here this time, we should take the chance to liven things up. Why don't you take care of it, Liv?" Olivia waved her hand in refusal and said, "This won't do. Mrs. Miller Sr. should be the one to do it. She's the head of the household. Also, I just got here and don't really know how to start. I won't be very good at it." Harold's birthday celebration had to be a huge event, not just a simple dinner. It would be a very challenging task, from inviting the guests to handling every detail of the banquet. The Millers were a prestigious family. They would become laughingstocks if Harold's birthday celebration were subpar. Ethan frowned and asked, "Grandpa, do we have to organize a banquet? We should just have a simple family dinner." Harold flicked Ethan on the forehead. "You brat, it's not every day that one celebrates his 80th birthday. It might even be my last birthday before I'm reunited with your grandmother. Why can't you just let me have my fun?" Alright, that's settled. Now, come have breakfast with me. Harold didn't give them a chance to talk back. He just dragged them along for breakfast. As they were walking, Ethan whispered to Olivia, Grandpa wants to use this opportunity to announce your identity to the public. You'll be the mistress of the Miller family after that. Olivia furrowed her brows. Subconsciously, she was rejecting the prospect of becoming the mistress of the Miller family. But your mother is still in her prime. The title shouldn't fall on me. Seeing that she repeatedly refused anything to do with the Millers, Ethan held her hand and said patiently, Liv, my mother has been burdened by the title of Mrs. Miller Sr. her entire life. In the past, she clung to it with her life. And then, she spent her days wasting away. Now that she has finally come to her senses, she won't want to do anything with that title attached to her. You're the most suitable person to inherit that title. Be honest with me. Is there something on your mind? Olivia said worriedly, I don't know. I know we're married, but I still don't remember anything. Even if we used to be close, I still feel like you're a stranger sometimes. That's why I don't want our relationship to move so fast. Liv, I understand your feelings, but have you ever considered my situation? You're the person I love the most, and you suddenly lost all memories of me. Your rejection makes me feel sad. Olivia hugged Ethan and apologized, I'm sorry. I was only thinking about myself and didn't even consider how you felt. Liv, I don't mind giving you time to accept me. But I hope it won't take forever, okay? Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Ethan gently patted her on the back and said, you never have to apologize to me, no matter what. I'll try my best not to pressure you, but you know how it is with my family. You're going to be Mrs. Miller. I'll handle everything at work, but I'll need your help in getting the domestic affairs in order. Olivia lowered her head and said, I'm afraid that I might not do a good job. Ethan tilted her chin up and gazed into her eyes. His eyes were gentle and loving. I'm sure whatever you do would be perfect. What if I mess up? Don't worry, I'll come up with a backup plan. Just try your hand at our family's domestic affairs with Grandpa's birthday banquet. Chapter 653. Look at you. I looked away for a bit, and you're all lovey-dovey. Harold appeared out of nowhere. Olivia quickly pulled away from Ethan while blushing. She kept a distance due to the embarrassment of being caught red-handed when sharing a moment of intimacy. Alright, no need to be shy. You two have been married for so long. I'll stop poking fun at you. Eugenia would be happy to know that you're getting along so well. Ethan, come and play a few rounds of chess with me. Okay, Grandpa. Olivia and Ethan parted ways as he was led away by Harold. After he was sure they were alone, Harold asked, what's going on between you and Olivia? Nothing. Do you think I'm blind? She's not reacting to a lot of things I mentioned. Also, why don't you have kids yet? She wanted to bear your children 3 years ago, and now she's unwilling. Harold's mind was clouded sometimes, but he was still sharp. Ethan knew he couldn't fool Harold, so he came clean. There were indeed some issues between us, but I've taken care of it. Harold's expression hardened, and he demanded, spit it out. Don't make me look into it myself. I taught you everything you know. Do you think I don't know what's wrong with you? Ethan recounted the past events and said, Grandpa, the most important thing is we've made up. Harold slapped Ethan before he could finish his sentence. He was old but still had enough strength for a hard slap. Ethan's face was visibly swollen after the slap. You fool! Harold was outraged. How could you marry Marina because of a promise you made to your deceased friend? Grandpa, I never intended to sleep with her. I just wanted to provide a home for her and her children. Do you realize that you've done a foolish thing? Do you think it's fine as long as you don't touch her? The worst thing you can do in a marriage is sow seeds of doubt. You married someone else out of nowhere. Did you even think about how she felt? I see. What about when you made a move against the Fordhams for revenge? I understand Leah manipulated things, and you were kept in the dark. But why did you hurt your wife and child? Were you even in your right mind? Why would you save the woman who pushed your wife into the water when both of them fell into the water together? I can't take much more of this. You're killing me. Harold clutched his chest and said, bring me my aspirin. You're probably the dumbest man I've ever met. Ethan quickly helped Harold to a chair and said, Grandpa, don't get worked up. It's all in the past now. In the past. Do you think you can put it behind you because she lost her memories? You injected her with the drug after hurting her repeatedly. Do you think that makes everything okay? There are so many misunderstandings that you haven't cleared up. She doesn't even know her own son is alive. Don't you think that's too cruel for a mother? Since we've already come to this, it's too late for me to tell her now. I don't want to get her worked up by bringing up the past. Harold sighed. You've already made the worst choice possible. Once she regains her memories, she'll hate you even more. When that happens, nothing you do will mend your relationship with her. Chapter 654. That was something Ethan had already thought about. It was also his biggest fear. The drug's effects are stable. I won't give her the chance to regain her memories. Nothing in this world is guaranteed. The most important thing you need to do now is to settle things with Marina. Make sure she doesn't show up and throw a wrench into your plans. Since it's already come to this, you need to cut losses before it's too late. You should also try to get her pregnant again. Ethan frowned. Both of Liv's pregnancies ended up with premature births. Her body isn't in good shape. It would be hard for her to get pregnant. Get someone to nurse her back to health then. Women are emotional creatures. Have you ever thought of what would happen if she found out what you did to her in the past? Ethan thought about how she was still wary of him despite suffering from amnesia. It was apparent how she was subconsciously rejecting him. She would leave without hesitation. That's right, she would. In her perspective, Connor is the son you had with Marina after you betrayed her. You need to have a baby with her that belongs to both of you. Once there's a baby in the equation, she will stay with you for the baby's sake, no matter how she feels about you. She's the granddaughter-in-law that I approve of. She was also your grandmother's favorite person. I don't want to see you lose her. Ethan couldn't bear the thought of losing Olivia. Grandpa, I won't let that happen. I'll make sure it doesn't. I'll think of a way to get her pregnant as soon as possible. Ethan looked like he had something to say as doubt flashed in his eyes. The 2 premature births were incredibly bad for Olivia's health. The last one happened just a few months ago. Ethan didn't want to impregnate Olivia again too soon. But Harold's words made sense. A baby would be able to bring them closer together. Should he get her pregnant after all? Grandpa, I have another question. What is it? Do you really not know who Miss Nat is? Harold replied without hesitation. I don't know who that is. Never heard of the name. Ethan tried to see if Harold was lying by looking him in the eye, but to no avail. He didn't notice Harold's clenched fists behind his back. Olivia went from the yard to the living room. Harold suddenly thrusts this task upon her. She had no choice but to ask for Janice's advice. Before she walked up to Janice, a voice said passive-aggressively, Miss Proctor, this is a dish I just learned how to make. Is it to your tastes? Isn't this Miss Fordham? Did you just wake up? Olivia rolled her eyes speechlessly. Miss Shaw, you sure came early. Even the maids aren't as eager as you. How can you be so lazy as a daughter-in-law? Is it because your parents died early, and you had no one to teach you manners? You must have come from a poor family, so you aren't as disciplined as someone from the Shaw family. Olivia couldn't help but let a chuckle slip as she went over to sit next to Janice. What are you laughing at? Was I wrong? Olivia said cheerily, well, weren't you? I've never seen any well-disciplined lady who would visit the home of a married man so frequently. Are you just dumb or oblivious? Don't you know what it means when a man is married? Or are you waiting for Ethan to take you in as his mistress? But you seem to have forgotten about one thing. Even if we ignore the fact that monogamy is the socially accepted norm, Ethan would need to ask for my permission if he wanted to take you as his mistress. Do you want to try currying my favor by doing some chores for me? Chapter 655. Nikki was visibly upset when Olivia said that. She said in a honeyed tone, look at her, Miss Proctor. She's so uncivilized. I meant well. Janice had just been enjoying the show. She didn't expect to be dragged into it. You mean well. Janice huffed. She put down her cutleries and wiped her lips elegantly. I didn't pick up on that at all. You were insulting her parents, too. Nikki looked at Janice in disbelief. She had stayed by Janice's side for so long. She didn't expect Janice to side with Olivia. Miss Proctor, I just felt bad for you. She isn't even taking good care of you as your daughter-in-law. She wakes up late in the morning. I don't think she even cares about you. Janice glanced at her with narrowed eyes. If she doesn't care about me, who does? Nikki blushed and said shyly, Miss Proctor, you know how I feel toward Ethan. She heard a sneer. Janice lifted her chin with a finger and said, do you know what I hate the most? Nikki met Janice's gaze. She felt bloodlust from the other's eyes, sending chills down her spine. Janice continued coldly, I hate bitches that intentionally try to steal another person's man. Nikki's heart skipped a beat when she heard that. She recalled Janice's past and realized that she was just the type of person Janice hated. Miss Proctor, I'm not like that. I am Ethan's childhood friend. I've known him for a long time, Nikki explained. Janice withdrew her hand and took a wet tissue to wipe the part of her finger that touched Nikki. If I remember correctly, I've never heard Ethan say he has feelings for you. Are you sure you're not forcing yourself on him, Miss Shaw? But, Mrs. Proctor, I like Ethan a lot. That woman is not even worthy of him. She doesn't come from an affluent family, hold no notable positions, or even have a degree. She's nothing but a pretty face. I'm more suited to be Ethan's wife. He should just divorce her already. You like him. What's the value in that? Or are you implying that the Miller family has fallen so far that we need an arranged marriage to survive? The resources that the Shaw family has are inconsequential to us. Also, you're just a pianist. There's nothing special about that. How dare you slander my daughter-in-law in my face repeatedly? Janice didn't respond to Nikki's words because she didn't want to argue with someone younger. But she started to go all out on Nikki. Nikki looked at her with an aggrieved expression. Miss Proctor, what did I do wrong? I've treated you like my mother for the past 2 years. If it's something I did, please tell me, I'll change. Did I ever ask you to take care of me? Am I paralyzed or disabled? Do you not see the maids we have? Or do you think you can do a better job than them? Nikki was so shocked that she even stopped sobbing. She looked at Janice in disbelief. Miss Proctor, that's not what you said back then. What should I have said? I couldn't exactly drive free labor away. Chapter 656. Free labor. Nikki was stunned. She thought she was hearing things. She couldn't believe Janice had actually said that. Miss Proctor, do you really hate me so much? But you've been so kind to me these 2 years. Tears were streaming down her face as she said that. She looked like a sad little kitten. Unexpectedly, Janice reacted negatively to her actions. Janice said coldly, drop the act. I'm not a man. All that does is make me even angrier. Nikki was dumbfounded. She thought Janice noticed how much she cared for her these 2 years. She thought Janice was just bad at expressing her emotions. But it seemed like Nikki was being delusional. Mrs. Proctor, I'll stop coming over if you hate me so much. You have to remember to take your meds. Nikki hoped that Janice would at least try to stop her from leaving. Funnily enough, her behavior reminded Janice of Jessica Potts. Kenneth initially had feelings for Janice, but Jessica pulled the same trick as Nikki to extinguish Kenneth's affection for Janice completely. Then, Jessica played the victim and blamed everything on Janice. That caused Kenneth to detest Janice. He even said that he didn't want to see Janice ever again. So, Janice hated people like Jessica and Nikki. If you wanna go, just go and stop whining. I can't stand the sight of women like you. Even Olivia was surprised at how aggressive Janice was. Nikki came to the Miller residence with a smile but left in tears. Olivia pointed in the direction Nikki left and asked, Miss Proctor, is it really okay to humiliate her like that? I have to correct the way you address me. You're the Millers' daughter-in-law. You should call me Mom. Liv, you can't be too docile. Or else, the bastards would just take advantage of you. Olivia looked at Janice with curiosity. Was that woman the same? It's not important anymore. I spent half my life trying to figure that out. I hope you can understand that from the start. You and Ethan will lead a happy life. Don't let these unimportant people affect your lives. Olivia nodded slowly and said, Mom, Grandpa wants me to organize his birthday banquet, but I don't even know where to start. It's okay, I'll help. Mom, have you truly gotten over it? Olivia had heard that Janice did a lot of absurd things just to force Kenneth to come home to her. But Kenneth ultimately left her and her son, and she became a laughingstock. The rumors and slander hadn't stopped since, which caused Janice to cut herself off from society. If she were willing to attend Harold's birthday banquet, it would be proof that she had completely let go of the past. A man like that is not worth my time. This household could use some liveliness. No one knew about your marriage with Ethan. Grandpa wants to use this opportunity to announce you as the mistress of the Miller family to the world. So, this banquet has to be as grand as possible. Mom, you have to show me the ropes. No problem. As mistress of the Miller family, you will be handling things like this in the future. Grandpa's banquet is a good chance to learn. Don't worry, I'll tell you all about his preferences. Olivia was surprised that she was able to get along so well with Janice. In the span of a day, they went from organizing Harold's birthday banquet to shopping together. Before Olivia realized it, they were already at the largest shopping mall in the city. Chapter 657. Olivia felt slightly strange as she was shopping with Janice. It was the first time she went shopping with her mother-in-law. She finally understood what it meant to be a big spender. Janice had many brand new clothes at home but still bought a whole pile of them without even batting an eye. Olivia wasn't sure if she was the same before she lost her memories. But at the moment, she felt troubled when she looked at those prices. Janice was completely unfazed. Just spend the money. If you don't spend it, are you planning to let some other woman spend it for you? Don't worry, the Millers are stacked. Olivia smiled awkwardly, then she heard Janice add, the Proctors are pretty well off, too. Olivia didn't know anything about the Proctors. She had heard that Janice was adamant about marrying Kenneth. She even turned down her childhood friend for Kenneth, which made her grandfather furious. The Proctors had tried to stop her from marrying Kenneth, but to no avail. When they learned that the Miller family was mistreating her, they tried to bring her home several times. Back then, Janice was devoted to Kenneth. She was sure that he would come back to her, so she kept on doing reckless things. So, even the Proctors had enough. They gave up on her and cut ties with her after she tried to commit suicide by slitting her wrists. Since they cut ties with Janice, they barely ever connected with Ethan. Olivia noticed the flash of loneliness in Janice's eyes when she brought up the Proctor family. She couldn't help but ask, Mom, do you ever regret your decision? Of course I do. I abandoned my family for a man. I came to another country to marry him with reckless disregard. Everything just feels like a nightmare now. I wasted away for 20 years. I was so pathetic. Janice was a proud woman. She wore a smile and put on a brave face even though she was feeling immense regret. Olivia held her hand and lightly patted the back of her hand to comfort her. Don't worry. I don't even fear death. Why would I be afraid of living? Janice looked at Olivia tenderly and said, pick something out for yourself. Don't worry about the money. Even though I've been a mess most of my life, I still have plenty of money. The Proctor family might have cut ties with Janice, but that was only because her actions saddened them. They wanted to use that as an ultimatum to change her mind. Financially, they never actually cut her off. Her parents and older siblings would send her money every month. The Miller family felt they had failed Janice, so she was also given plenty of dividends annually. The money had accumulated for over 20 years, and it was a hefty amount. Janice sat in the VIP room and watched as the models tried on different clothes. Is there anything you like? Olivia wasn't too interested in fashion. I think they're all fine, but I already have too many clothes at home. You don't have to buy any for me. That won't do. Buy everything you want. Olivia rubbed her temples and said, I'll take this one. Janice waved her hand and said, I'll take everything. The salesperson smiled from ear to ear while Olivia felt a little speechless. Miss, come this way so I can take your measurements. All right. Olivia turned to Janice and told her, "Mom, I'll be getting my measurements taken." Janice waved at her dismissively and said, "Go ahead. I'll check out the jewelry store next door." Olivia winced as she thought about the huge amount of money Janice was about to spend. She knocked into someone as she was spacing out. The clothes in the person's arms fell to the floor. "I'm sorry." Olivia and the woman crouched down at the same time. "It's okay." The woman had a clear voice. Their eyes met, and the woman visibly froze when she saw Olivia. Chapter 658. Olivia saw an unfamiliar face. The face was exquisite, but she didn't feel a sense of familiarity. So, she figured that the woman was a stranger. But the woman looked at Olivia like she knew her. "Do you know me?" Olivia asked. The woman regained her composure and said with a smile, "In a way." The woman stood up. Her posture was elegant and confident as she stuck her hand out. "Hi, I'm Jacqueline Fordham." This name, Olivia couldn't help but ask, "You're a Fordham?" Avery had just given her his card not long ago. She didn't expect to meet another Fordham so soon. "Yeah, Avery told us about you. We wouldn't have found my sister's remains without your help. I've been meaning to visit you, but I didn't expect to meet you here. You're more beautiful in person." Jacqueline smiled. A dimple appeared on her left cheek, which made her seem even more delightful and charming. Olivia had asked Ethan about her encounter with Avery. He casually glossed over it and told her about what happened. "It was no big deal. You don't have to thank me for it, Miss Fordham. I'll be taking my leave now." Jacqueline grabbed Olivia's arm, but she quickly withdrew her hand when she realized what she did was rude. "I'm sorry. May I have your contact information? I just got to this city, and I will be leaving soon. I hope to at least have a meal with you to express my gratitude before I go." "Thanks for the gesture, but I didn't help much. I appreciate your kindness, but there's no need for a meal." Olivia nodded and left with the salesperson after she said that. She wasn't sure if she was imagining things, but Olivia felt someone's gaze following her. As she approached a corner, she turned around and took a glance. The corridor was empty, not a single person in sight. Olivia came back to her senses and shook her head. It was probably just her imagination. After getting her measurements taken, Olivia went looking for Janice. She felt the atmosphere change entirely when she entered the jewelry store. Janice was sitting cross-legged on a stool. Even if she didn't utter a word, she exuded an air of charm and maturity. There was a woman standing a short distance from Janice. The woman wasn't young anymore, but she took good care of herself, and her figure was comparable to that of a young woman. Her makeup was light, but there was more than met the eye. Her entire look was meticulously designed. Only other women would be able to pick up on the finer details. Most men wouldn't even notice. The woman gave off the delicate charm of a docile and reserved woman, while Janice exuded the grace and elegance of a noblewoman. The woman was clearly not on Janice's level when it came to looks. The woman said in a seemingly feeble tone, "Janice, I didn't know you wanted that necklace." "I'm sorry. Why don't I buy it for you?" Janice snorted and set her coffee down as she looked at the woman condescendingly. The woman seemed to be waiting for Janice to continue talking. Unexpectedly, Janice fell silent after grunting. It seemed like she didn't care about the woman in the slightest. The woman spoke up again. "You probably haven't seen Kenneth in a long time, Janice. He's here, too. I've always felt bad about what happened. I've never had the chance to meet you all these years. I've been meaning to apologize." Janice didn't even look at the woman. She noticed Olivia from the corner of her eye. She waved at Olivia. Noticed the atmosphere wasn't right, but she obediently went to Janice's side. "Mom, she's nobody. You can ignore her. Look at these accessories that I picked out for you." Chapter 659. Olivia could sense that something was wrong, but she didn't try to ask any questions since she noticed Janice's aloof attitude. Olivia nodded at the woman politely and said, "Please make way." The woman took Olivia's hand affectionately and said, "You must be Olivia. I've seen the news. You're a good match for Ethan. You two look like a match made in heaven when standing next to each other." The woman saw the confusion in Olivia's eyes and introduced herself. Look at me. I forgot that we haven't met. I'm Ethan's stepmother. You can call me Miss Potts. Olivia immediately understood who she was. Jessica Potts, the love of Kenneth's life. She was also the one that brought misfortune upon the Millers, and she was also a Class A bitch. Olivia didn't expect to meet Jessica in person. She finally understood why Janice was acting that way. Also, Jessica was probably trying to cozy up to her so she could ruin Janice's day. Jessica was obviously more skilled at putting up appearances than Nikki. Her smile was so warm that Olivia might have been fooled if she didn't know what Jessica did in the past. Olivia smiled politely and said, Miss, please make way. You're blocking me. I just want to try on some accessories. Olivia didn't engage Jessica. She just remained polite and kept her distance so that Jessica wouldn't have the opportunity to start anything. Janice had also changed. She used to throw a fit whenever she saw Jessica, but she was ignoring Jessica entirely at the moment. Come, check this sapphire necklace out. It looks good on you, Janice said as she put the necklace on Olivia. Initially, Olivia felt like Janice was a high and mighty empress who was dispassionate and distant. After spending some time with Janice, Olivia realized that Janice was just a very straightforward person. She would wear her emotions on her sleeve and wouldn't even try to keep up appearances for people she hated. Olivia felt at ease when she was with someone like Janice. Jessica smiled and reached for the necklace on Olivia's neck. It really suits you, Miss Fordham. Look at how good the gem looks. Why don't you let me pay for it? Consider it a gift from me. You're Ethan's wife, and we shouldn't be strangers. Olivia already got a taste of how fearsome Jessica was. She was all smiles, yet her words were like knives aimed at Janice's heart. She wasn't sure if she was just imagining it or if Jessica was deliberately trying to make Janice mad. Janice slapped Jessica's hand away and said, Keep your grubby hands off my daughter-in-law. Although Janice's actions were rude, Olivia was shocked to see Jessica take a few steps back from Janice's slap. Her performance was so convincing that Olivia thought she could become an actress. Coincidentally, someone appeared just in time to catch Jessica on the waist. The man said coldly, What's going on here? Olivia turned around to look at the man. He looked handsome and elegant. His features resembled Ethan's. The man was tall, looked like he took good care of himself, and was wearing expensive clothes. He looked like he was in his 40s. Olivia figured the man had to be Kenneth Miller, whom she had heard so much about. From the looks of it, Ethan looked more like Kenneth than Daryl did. Daryl's features were softer and more feminine. Looking at Kenneth, Olivia was reminded of what he did to Ethan when he was 3. She had no love for Kenneth or Jessica. Olivia was worried about Janice. She met both Jessica and Kenneth quickly after she stepped foot outside of the house. Was it an accident or a coincidence? Chapter 660. Olivia was afraid that this meeting would cause Janice's condition to worsen. She observed all of their expressions anxiously. Kenneth finally noticed Janice's presence. His gaze fell on her momentarily before moving away. The emotions in his eyes were conflicted. Several emotions were swirling within. Janice didn't even look at him. She muttered, Just my fucking luck. Her voice wasn't loud, but everyone could hear it. Janice waved at the salesperson and said, Pack up all these I have tried on. The salesperson said uneasily, About that, Mrs. Miller Sr. had reserved them in advance. They are our last pair. I showed them to you to match them with the necklace. Mrs. Miller Sr. These 3 words were quite ironic. Jessica quickly said, It's fine, Janice. We're a family, after all. If you like these earrings, you can have them. Kenneth can pay for them. It'll be our gift to Olivia. Right, Kenneth. This is Ethan's wife. I don't think you've met her before. What a considerate woman Jessica was. Olivia suddenly understood why Kenneth would leave Janice for Jessica. Janice's upbringing basically made sure she would be a proud heiress. She never needed to be considerate of other people's feelings, and everyone in her family doted on her. Even when she fell in love, she did things her way. She never stopped to consider other people's feelings like Jessica. Kenneth's status was similar to Janice's. It was only natural that he would prefer a more docile woman like Jessica. Kenneth said slowly, "How much is it?" "I'll pay for it." Janice, who had remained silent the whole time, looked at them expressionlessly and asked, "Olivia, do you like these earrings, dear?" Olivia quickly shook her head and said, "The design and color are subpar. After a closer look, I don't really like it." She proceeded to take off the necklace and put it back. She even thanked the salesperson politely. Her actions pleased Janice. Janice leaned on the counter lazily and said, "I'll take everything other than the ones that woman looked at or touched." The salesperson stammered, all of them." Janice took out a black card and said, "Swipe this card. Pack everything up and deliver it to my place." The salesperson carefully picked up the card and went to process the transaction. The salesperson had rarely seen such a big spender, even in a place like this. Olivia finally witnessed the scene where the rich and powerful man stands up for the helpless woman, just like in the movies. But she felt like Janice was still the cooler one. Janice patted Olivia's hand and said with a smile, "Liv, I've told you before. You don't even need to hold back when spending. We have plenty of money. Let's look at some handbags over there." "Okay." Olivia nodded at Kenneth and Jessica. Then she said, "Please let us through." Jessica watched as Janice left. She felt like Janice was different from before. In the past, Janice would throw a fit when others addressed Jessica as Mrs. Miller Sr. But she didn't even look at Kenneth, whom she loved so much, this time. Janice walked away without looking back, treating Kenneth like he didn't exist. Kenneth felt uncomfortable being ignored by Janice. He spoke up again. "Janice." In the past, Janice would come running whenever he uttered her name. She was like his most faithful believer who yearned for his love. But this time, her footsteps didn't even slow down. Curious about the expression Kenneth was making, Olivia looked back at him.